There's a West Coast, East Coast bias throughout Phillip Rivers' career. If you look at the players and the quarterbacks that he was drafted in that same year, that being Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and him playing with the Chargers, now with them being in Los Angeles, and those guys winning Super Bowls and being in multiple Super Bowls. So we haven't had a lot of eyes on him, but his numbers have been spectacular. And I believe this is one of the most talented groups of offensive players that he's playing with. And people don't realize that Melvin Gordon, how good he is. This year, he's leading the NFL over 6.4 yards per touch. And you're talking about
number one in the NFL.
Ahead of James White, Nick Chubb, and T.J. Yeldon is one of those other ones on the list. So we know about the young receiving core, Michael Williams. We know about some of the other guys. Antonio Gates brought him back after they had an injury. So this offensive line is giving him the type of time that he can get to the line of scrimmage. And we never say this, but he has full control. He can audible at any time. He can run at any time. So he is taking advantage of that, and he is picking defenses apart. And that's why they have real Super Bowl aspirations in Los Angeles with the Chargers, not only with the Rams.
Right. Listen, if Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers are never traded for each other, it's very interesting to think about how they would be looked at and what their careers would be thought of. If Phillip Rivers, with that talent, that funky delivery, but man, it's effective, got to play with those coaches and those defenses in New York, I think he could deal with the weather. I know he had the great weather of San Diego, now great weather of Los Angeles, but I don't think he would have been a quarterback that couldn't deal with the weather of New York and what we would thought of Eli. Now, I'm not acting like Phillip Rivers hasn't had good talent around him, because he did have LaDainian Tomlinson for the bulk of his run, and LaDainian's one of, I believe, the greatest running backs in NFL history. But Phillip Rivers, because he's never been to a Super Bowl, gets forgotten what his overall raw statistical production is. And the other thing that's forgotten is this. The moment he took over for Drew Brees, man's never missed a game. Never missed a game. He's going to break Eli didn't have the record, Favre does, but he will pass Eli on the consecutive start streak next year, assuming this is it for Eli. He has been an Iron Man. He played an AFC Championship game with a torn ACL, because that was the closest he ever came to getting to a Super Bowl. But even with all that said, this year, he's been better than ever before. Like, look at his average year and look at what he's on pace for this year. Better completion percentage, better yards per pass by a full yard, way better touchdown interception ratio, and the passer rating 20 points higher. And those average years were putting him on a potential Hall of Fame track. Like, he's been great this year. In my eyes, it's forgotten because they're the Chargers, because they started 1-2, because he's in the same division as Mahomes. But after Mahomes and Brees, you can make an argument that he's been the best quarterback in football so far this year. And
I believe out of that class, there's 3 Hall of Famers. People think there's obvious conversation in Eli and Big Ben, with Big Ben being a no-brainer, and there will be a debate over Eli. But for me, Phillip Rivers, you have to include him. He will be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day.
I wish he wasn't such a diva. I feel like that just would make it.
He's everything but.
Anything but.